some of the most powerful art we have comes from humanity's absolute darkest moments. It's the kind of art that forces us to confront histories we might otherwise try to forget. Today we're going to look at one of the most haunting songs ever recorded, and the brutal true story that inspired it.
Those are, of course, the opening lines of Strange Fruit. It's a song that Billie Holiday's just searing performance turned into one of America's most powerful, most chilling protest anthems. The strange fruit she was singing about? Well, those were the bodies of Black Americans hanging from trees.
But here's the thing. This song isn't just a metaphor. It was inspired by a very specific, very harrowing event, an event captured in a single, unforgettable photograph. So, what is the true story behind Strange Fruit? Let's get into it.
To really understand the song, we have to start with the image that sparked the whole thing.
So the story actually begins not with Billie Holiday, but with a Jewish schoolteacher from the Bronx, a guy named Abram. In 1937, he saw a photograph that he just could not get out of his head. It so deeply disturbed him that he channeled all that horror into a poem he first called Bitter Fruit, which of course would later become the song we all know.
And you have to understand, the photo Meeropol saw wasn't some hidden, secret thing. No, it was a mass-produced postcard. Back in the early 20th century, lynchings were often these huge public spectacles, and believe it or not, photos of them were sold as souvenirs. A local photographer named Lawrence Beitler printed thousands of copies of this one image, selling them for 50 cents a pop.
To understand that photograph, we have to go back 7 years earlier, to the night of the event itself. We're going to Marion, Indiana, in 1930, for what is widely considered the last confirmed lynching of Black people in the northern United States.
And things escalated with just terrifying speed. On August 6th, 3 teenagers get arrested. By the very next night, a huge mob has formed outside the jail. They take sledgehammers, they smash their way in, and within hours, 2 of those boys are dead.
So who were these young men at the center of it all? They were Thomas Shipp, who was 18, Abram Smith, 19, and the youngest, just 16 years old, James Cameron. The charges against them were serious. Armed robbery, the murder of a white man named Claude Dieter, and the rape of his companion, Mary Ball.
And the mob that came for them. It was enormous. Estimates put the crowd size as high as 15,000 people. This was not some hidden crime done in the dead of night. This was a public spectacle, with men, women, and even children out there watching.
Shipp and Smith were brutally beaten and then hanged. The mob then turned their attention to 16-year-old James Cameron. They put a noose around his neck, but in this moment that just feels almost unbelievable, some anonymous voice from the crowd, a woman's voice, shouted out that he was innocent. And for whatever reason, the mob actually listened. They let him go. He was the sole survivor of that night.
But what happened after the lynching was, in its own way, just as shocking as the event itself. And it all started with that infamous photograph and a total, complete failure of the justice system.
Okay, here is an absolutely crucial detail. That charge that ignited the mob's fury in the first place, the rape of Mary Ball, it was false. During James Cameron's later trial, she testified under oath that she had not been raped. But by then, of course, Thomas Shipp and Abram Smith were already dead.
And this just perfectly illustrates the so-called justice of the time. Despite Lawrence Beitler's photograph clearly showing the faces of men in the mob, you could see them clear as day. Not one person was ever convicted for the murders of Shipp and Smith. And yet, James Cameron, the 16-year-old who survived the lynching, he was convicted as an accessory and spent 4 years in prison.
But this story of profound injustice, it also sparked a really powerful fight for change, led by some incredibly brave activists who just refused to let this be swept under the rug.
Right at the forefront of that fight was a woman named Flossie Bailey. She was the head of the local NAACP chapter. And get this, she had actually warned the sheriff about the mob before it happened, and afterward, she was absolutely relentless, pressuring state officials for accountability.
The National NAACP also sent in their secretary, Walter White. Now, his story is incredible. Because of his light skin, White could pass as a white man. So he goes undercover in Marion, pretending to admire the mob's spirit to get the members to lower their guard and brag about what they did. He ultimately got the names of 27 alleged participants and delivered them right to the U.S. Attorney General.
So here's the crucial point, right? While individual justice completely failed in the courtroom, the activism of people like Bailey and White led to a huge systematic victory. Indiana passed a groundbreaking anti-lynching law in 1931.
It held sheriffs directly accountable. If you let a prisoner get lynched from your jail, you were automatically fired. And this law became a really powerful deterrent for decades to come.
And what about James Cameron, the boy who survived that night? Well, his life became this incredible testament to resilience and the fight for memory itself. I mean, just think about his journey. After surviving a lynch mob and then spending years in prison for a crime he always maintained he fled from, James Cameron dedicated the rest of his life to civil rights. He founded several NAACP chapters, and, maybe most importantly, he established America's Black Holocaust Museum to make sure that stories just like his would never, ever be forgotten.
And then finally, more than 60 years after the event, the state of Indiana formally acknowledged the immense injustice he had suffered. In 1993, he was officially pardoned.
So when you really look back, you see these three incredibly powerful forces all working together to preserve this one history. You have the shocking photograph that you just couldn't ignore, the haunting song that carried the story all across the world, and the unshakable will of a survivor who simply refused to let his community forget.
Which leaves us with this final, really vital question. For decades, the white community in Marion tried to willfully forget what happened that night. It just goes to show you that memory isn't passive. It's something that has to be fought for. So how does any community or any nation truly remember a history it has desperately tried to erase?